LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the May 7th edition of LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me. I picked out the weekend's 16 best, most newsworthy clips for what should be a really educational, fair use, media criticism, and political analysis show for you all tonight. I'll start with some Saturday Night Live political comedy, the cold open with Kate McKinnon playing Mika Brzezinski from Morning Joe, and then a not appearance, but a call-in by Alec Baldwin also in that first clip that's making fun of the healthcare debacle, or I don't know, triumph, depending on your point of view, I guess. Republicans and Democrats were both claiming victory with the passage of the healthcare bill through the House of Representatives, and that's the big topic, the only topic that I'm covering in all of the clips. There'll also be some political comedy from HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher, monologue, and then a parade of Trump administration officials and Democrats and Republicans from Congress on all the big five corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States. If you want to follow along the 16 clips, I put a link down in the video description to this clip list that I use. You might not be able to understand all my notes to myself, but it should at least let you know who's speaking and what clip and what network it's from. It's all on the same topic this week, so that's not going to help you out. So, like I said, the big topic is the passage of health care through the House of Representatives. It was a bill that doesn't really have a lot to recommend it to people who analyze it, which is why it didn't get a lot of analysis before it passed. And the first clip I want to show is Donald Trump, aka John Miller, played by Alec Baldwin, calling into the parody of the Morning Joe show from MSNBC, Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, played by Kate McKinnon and Alex Moffat, which I will discuss with you after we watch that clip together over here.
I'm just celebrating the fantastic success we had in Congress yesterday with the new healthcare law. After Congress voted, we had a party. There was beer. The disaster that is Obamacare has finally been repealed.
Okay, hold on, sir. It's not repealed yet. The bill still has to pass the Senate.
What now?
The bill goes through the Senate. They might even rewrite the entire thing if they pass it at all.
But there was beer.
Mr. Miller, the bill has a long way to go, so it seems a little premature to celebrate.
You know what? We're going to look into this. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, here's what I want to say. Don't stop me. The president is mentally ill.
Well,
he has entered a state of psychosis.
Mika, you're being naughty. Okay, you're being very naughty.
When am I being naughty?
Yeah, you're being real naughty. You're being real naughty. Maybe you need someone to punish you for being naughty.
A bad journalist?
And I won't go into all of the visual, physical comedy and the sexual innuendos that they go into in that sketch, which I thought was pretty funny. As someone who watches Morning Joe on a fairly regular basis, I watch most of the morning. Well, I don't think I watch much of the CNN morning show, but I do watch Fox and Friends and Morning Joe sometimes when I'm up real early. And you can see that entire video since I showed it as a YouTube video there. Down in the video description, there's a link to the entire cold open. In fact, all three political comedy clips I'm showing are available free on YouTube. The two from Saturday Night Live, where almost the entire show is available in clips on their Saturday Night Live channel on YouTube. And then Real Time with Bill Maher, a lot of it is available free on YouTube, including the monologue. That's the next thing I want to show. Both Bill Maher's monologue and then some jokes from Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live that both show that, at least at the simple cultural level, the way the stand-up comedians and the comedy writers on Saturday Night Live and Bill Maher and his writers are spinning this latest healthcare bill, it just is not looking good for Republicans. Apparently, it only had 17% approval when it actually got scored by the Congressional Budget Office before it was amended to actually get enough votes to pass it. And anyway, you can see some of the jokes that Bill Maher was making. I thought several of them were funny, and he brings up one issue that you'll see comes up also in the Saturday Night Live set of jokes that becomes a real issue in the news clips I'm going to show after that, which I will discuss with you after we watch that clip here.
No, I mean, good thing California has medical marijuana, because when the Republicans get done with health care, that is the only treatment you're going to have. You saw what they did? Oh, yeah. I tell you, never underestimate these bastards. We thought we had them a couple of months ago. Health care came up in the House, didn't pass. Oh, these fuck-ups. Nope. They did it. They did it the other day. They told Jimmy Kimmel's baby, go screw yourself. They told Jimmy Kimmel's baby. I didn't. Let's start at the beginning. We're separating what I say with, there you go. Little tutorial we need. Anyway, no, the House did it. They passed the thing that basically lets the states be the bad guys and deny coverage of people with pre-existing conditions. This is what got, by the way, the moderate Republicans on board. The moderate Republicans. These are people who are like, I dabble in killing people. I wouldn't call myself a murderer, but And then the nerve of them, after they did this, after they kicked 24 million people or more off health care, they threw a big party in the Rose Garden to celebrate it. There they are. Look at them high-fiving each other and congratulating. Look at all these white assholes. Somewhere there's an Elks Lodge going, where's everybody?
So, yeah, that was a series of good jokes, I thought. That's why I watch HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher, because whether I agree or disagree with Bill's opinions, I usually find his jokes funny, and I thought the whole monologue was pretty funny. There's a link down to it in the video description, as usual, as I explained beforehand. And you notice the whole Elks Lodge joke there at the end, and the picture of all the white guys. There were a few women sprinkled in, as you'll hear someone, is it Mick Mulvaney, one of the Trump administration officials, will say in a clip I'll show a little later. And that's going to be a continuing issue. The whole, the fact that the celebration of the victory, which was really just passage through the House of Representatives, the photo, the photo op part of it was a whole bunch of like white guys, like old white guys, and that's also true. You'll see later of the Senate group. The 13 senators are all white men who are the Republicans appointed to look at the issue, but that comes up later. First, like I said, before I showed the Bill Maher jokes, I want to show a few of the jokes from the Saturday Night Live Weekend Update analysis, I guess, comedic analysis of the Healthcare Act that passed the House, and I thought there were also several good jokes in here, and the same issue of the optics of who passed it comes up with Michael Che's jokes at the end that I will talk about with you after we watch that clip together here.
This week, President Trump started building his wall, a wall between millions of Americans and their health care. The House voted to repeal and replace Obamacare, and many congressmen admitted they didn't even read the bill before voting on it. They're treating health care the way I treat an iTunes agreement. I'm like, I'm sure it's fine. Then suddenly I'm dealing with a pre-existing condition like that U2 album they forced onto our phones. The bill was strongly opposed by the American Medical Association, the American Hospital Association, and the National Physicians Alliance, though it did receive a rare thumbs up from the Grim Reaper.
This picture of them celebrating is just so chilling. No minority can see all these old white dudes smiling and think, yeah, I think this is going to be great news for us. They look like they just invented sickle cell. The new Republican health bill would allow insurance companies to charge people higher premiums for 240 pre-existing conditions. For reference, here's what 240 pre-existing conditions looks like.
You gotta love a good Steve Bannon joke, I guess, and that sickle cell joke, I like that as the Michael Che approach to the parade of white guys who passed this, and I thought that Colin Jost also made several good jokes there. I will criticize Saturday Night Live when I don't think they're doing a good job, but at least that one, and Also, for my longtime viewers who saw at the beginning of the Trump administration, Kellyanne Conway came on a lot of shows, and she's gone. And they did a funny sketch like "Where in the World is Kellyanne Conway?" like a Carmen Sandiego parody. You can find that on the Saturday Night Live YouTube channel down in the video description. So those are all the political comedy clips. Like I said, I think if those jokes from Saturday Night Live and from Bill Maher, not so much the cold open there, but those sets of jokes show that to the extent they reflect how the culture is understanding the bill passed by the House of Representatives, they're getting pretty close. You know, the Grim Reaper joke from Colin Jost there, I thought that also kind of hit the mark, because the sad thing is that people are going to die, and you're going to see a couple different ways in these next news clips I'm going to show that different news organizations showed a town hall meeting with Republican Raul Labrador, where he claimed, oh, no one has ever died from lack of health care, and got like boos from the audience. That's going to come up in I think three or maybe even all four of the three of the next, in several of the four news clips I'm about to show you. These are the general reports about what happened with healthcare. I'm going to start with NBC's Meet the Press. Chuck Todd was gone for his daughter's bat mitzvah, I believe they said, at the end of the show. So Andrea Mitchell was hosting, and she gave, this is their 3-minute, 45-second, a little under that, news report as to the winners and losers and broken promises. I think they did a good job on that. And it talks about the people who are hurt and what the political consequences will be, as I will discuss with you after we watch that news report together over here.
A White House signing ceremony celebrating the passage of a bill that has merely made it through the House. But after their health care win, President Trump and House Speaker Paul Ryan were more than happy to spike the football, even if there is still a lot of green grass between them and the end zone. That said, the House did just hand a skeptical Senate a bill not scored by the Congressional Budget Office, not read by most of those who voted for it, and that counts among its winners those with high incomes, wealthier people without pre-existing conditions, the young and large employers, and among its losers, the poor, older Americans, people with pre-existing conditions, and those who counted on Obamacare's essential health benefits. Still, this was a win that President Trump needed and got. Many people declared the repeal and replace movement dead as recently as this week. But the president, as he has done so many times before, proved people wrong.
The ayes are 217, the nays are 213.
After a legislative victory, a White House celebration.
How am I doing? Am I doing okay? I'm president. Hey, I'm president. Can you believe it, right?
The House of Representatives voted on Thursday to scale back health care for millions of Americans, bending, if not breaking, promises Mr. Trump has made.
I want to keep pre-existing condition. I think we need it.
But the House bill would allow states to opt out of rules which prohibit insurance companies from raising rates on people with pre-existing conditions. Candidate Trump promised there will be no cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. But according to the Congressional Budget Office analysis of the first version of the bill, federal funding for Medicaid would drop by $880 billion over the next 10 years. In January, President-elect Trump promised insurance for everybody, repeating a vow he made on the campaign trail.
I am going to take care of everybody. I don't care if it costs me votes or not.
But the Congressional Budget Office estimated 24 million people would lose health care over the next decade. The House bill eliminates the essential health benefits requirement, meaning insurance companies could choose not to cover services like maternity and pediatric care, mental health, and prescription drugs, even under employer-based plans. Republicans say it will lower premiums overall.
You'll have better health care at a lower cost.
The bill also ends federal funding for Planned Parenthood. Republicans still have to wrestle a bill through the Senate that House conservatives will accept. Some Republican senators already say the House bill falls short, don't support the bill as currently constructed, and have more questions than answers. Now a 13-member Senate working group will write a new bill.
In the Senate bill, if you have a pre-existing condition, you'll be able to get insurance. In fact, that law can't be changed.
And after this emotional plea,
no parent should ever have to decide if they can afford to save their child's life.
Would the child born with a congenital heart disease be able to get everything she or he would need in that first year of life? I wanted to pass the Jimmy Kimmel test.
Democrats are hoping to make health care a potent election issue, taunting Republicans on the House floor.
After transactions related to North Korea and for other purposes.
After the vote, the nonpartisan Cook Political Report changed the ratings of 20 Republican-held seats to show new opportunities for Democrats in the midterms. And within an hour of the House vote, a Democrat running for governor of Virginia released this ad, blaming Republicans for crushing affordable health care.
And we'll make sure this never happens in Virginia.
So yeah, that was the NBC report, and I thought they did a good job of covering like the broken promises, comparing what was in this bill, at least from the House bill, and what Trump has called it a great bill. So it's fair to compare it to what he promised, and I don't think it matches up to, you know, something terrific or covering everybody better than Obamacare and no cuts to Medicaid. That, you know, that will come up. You'll see specifically in clips later. So NBC did a good job of showing that and talking about the political consequences. You can let me know down in the comment section what you think the political consequences might be, or what you think of that NBC clip. And then next I'm going to give you the ABC clip to compare it to. George Stephanopoulos actually created a better context, I think. He talked about the defeat back in March, and you may remember when I did my Sunday live clip roundup, I think the title was Trump Loses Bigly. So if that was a big loss when healthcare didn't even pass the House, then I guess this is some kind of victory. And so you'll see that in the ABC report, they actually talk about how both sides benefit, which I think is a little different from the NBC report. They show that Raul Labrador clip that I talked about, and you'll see that when they do subtitles for it, so in case you can't hear what the speaker and Raul Labrador are saying at this town hall meeting, they do it all in the same color, which is kind of different from what I'm going to show on Fox News in a minute, which I think may be significant for reasons I will explain after we watch that clip and before we watch the Fox News clip over here.
The effort to repeal Obamacare seemed to end with more whimper than bang. After 7 years of debate, dozens of symbolic votes, Republicans couldn't rally behind a bill that might actually become law. Obamacare, for all its problems, appeared too popular to kill. The benefits too meaningful to too many. It's kind of an iron law of politics. Once the government provides a benefit, it's almost impossible to take it back. We've seen it with Social Security. We've seen it with Medicare. Now that law is being put to its biggest test in generations. Cut to the Rose Garden this week. President Trump and Speaker Ryan savoring a victory, backed by dozens of cheering House members who'd cobbled together a repeal compromise that passed with a single vote to spare.
And this is a great plan. I actually think it will get even better. And this is, make no mistake, this is a repeal and a replace of Obamacare. Make no mistake about it. Make no mistake.
But here's the surprising thing. Back in the House, Democrats appeared just as pleased. Leader Nancy Pelosi closed the debate by warning Republicans they were making the mistake of their careers.
You have every provision of this bill tattooed on your forehead. You will glow in the dark on this one. You will glow in the dark.
And as the final votes were counted, her troops broke out in song. All of this sparked a rare bipartisan scolding from the New York Post. Children, they're all children. Point taken. The stakes in this debate too high for silly games, but both sides may also be right. The GOP needed a win now, needed to show their base they could deliver on a big promise. But if history holds, they could pay a big price later. Democrats lost control of Congress in 2010 after passing Obamacare in 2009. And in town meetings this weekend, members of Congress are facing tough questions and raw feelings.
You are mandating people on Medicaid except dying. You are making a mandate.
No one wants anybody to die. You know, that line is so indefensible. Nobody dies because they don't have access to health care.
That emotion is fueled by a simple fact. What happens to health care matters to everyone. Everyone has a stake. Everyone has a story. Everyone wants the health care they need at a price they can afford. Rarely does official Washington touch so many lives so directly and so deeply. This morning, 3 big questions on the table. How would repeal legislation passed by the House affect all of us and America's health care system overall? Can legislation that looks anything like that bill actually pass the Senate? Leaders there are already saying they're going to start from scratch. And what will be the political fallout? When this debate ends, which party will own health care at what cost? And we begin with the personal impact.
And I'm not going to go to that next part, but I did like the way George Stephanopoulos asked those 3 questions. I think those are 3 important questions, are a good way to split up the important questions about healthcare. You can let me know what you think in the comment section as to whether you like that split. Also, that comparison of the 2 sides and the conclusion that they're both acting like children because of the hey, hey, na, na, goodbye song that the Democrats were singing when the Republicans passed the House bill, which is, the song they sing to say, goodbye to the losing team because they think Republicans are going to lose seats like Democrats lost seats for passing Obamacare. Trumpcare is even less popular. So, well, of course, Republicans haven't passed it, but you already saw from the previous news report that there are ads running against Republicans. I'm going to show you another ad, and it's going to be in an interview clip in just a minute. But I did promise, and I'm also going to compare the acting like children thing to John Dickerson talking to Mick Mulvaney about how a bill becomes a law, which they both make this childhood reference that I think even relates to the first clip I showed in the show. But I want to also compare this Fox News clip next, which includes the Raul Labrador town hall meeting clip where he says no one ever died from lack of access to health care, and the whole crowd goes, ooh. You noticed how in the ABC clip I just showed, they gave who was speaking, Labrador, and what he said, and then the other person, what they said, and they used all white lettering. When Fox News does the clip, which I at least have to give them credit for showing that clip, because they start off saying, how the Republicans are making progress, and this is the introductory clip from Fox News Sunday from Chris Wallace this morning, where he says Republicans are making progress and they celebrate. They show that celebratory picture, but then they also show the angry constituent Raul Labrador clip and say it's going to be a long road. But I think it's a little fishy the way they do the lettering, and I'll explain something else they did about, and you'll notice they reference Karl Rove and Dr. Mark Gruber, I think his first name's Mark, Dr. Gruber, Mark Gruber, I'm pretty sure, and I will explain why this lettering is just one piece of evidence of something fishy going on because of a clip I'm not going to show of Karl Rove a little later in the program after this clip.
Republicans have finally started making progress on their pledge to overhaul the nation's health care system. President Trump held a celebration in the Rose Garden after the House passed repeal and replace. But there was no celebrating at town halls where GOP members who supported the bill, like Raul Labrador of the House Freedom Caucus, faced angry constituents.
You are mandating people on Medicaid except dying. You are making Americans...
No one wants anybody to die. That line is so indefensible. Nobody dies because they don't have access to health care.
Health care reform still faces a long, tough road in the Senate, and it could be months, if ever, before it becomes law. This hour, we'll look at how the proposed changes in the House bill would affect you, with GOP strategist Karl Rove and Obamacare architect Jonathan Gruber. But first, here in Washington, the White House chief...
Sorry, it's Jonathan Gruber, not Mark Gruber. I had a feeling that was not his correct first name. I apologize for that mistake. The thing I wanted to tell you about that I'm not going to show, Jonathan Gruber, whose name I couldn't remember, but what I do remember about him is how they kept talking about him over and over again on Fox News to make Obamacare look bad because he was shown in videotapes on video saying that Obamacare was passed in a non-transparent way, because they wanted to take advantage of the stupidity of the American people. They couldn't get it by them, if they really understood it, because they don't know what's good for them or something like that, or that the complexity of Obamacare worked to their advantage as a legislative strategy, that kind of thing. So that's the background of Jonathan Gruber, and I'm not going to show you any more clips of that or the Karl Rove Jonathan Gruber argument. One thing I noticed, and you can watch all of Fox News Sunday at the link down to all the 5 corporate news outlet shows that I take my clips from. When Karl Rove is making his argument, they do like a one-shot just on Karl Rove's face and let him argue. But then when Jonathan Gruber starts giving his counter-argument, they give a one-shot on Dr. Gruber's face for about 10 seconds or so, and then they split to the two-shot, I guess they call it, where you can see Karl Rove the whole time going, no, no, no. I mean, he's not speaking, but just like, So I think that is another bit of evidence that the production of the clips, or the production of the broadcast on Fox News Sunday, has a bias to it all its own, even though the questioning that I think of Reince Priebus by Chris Wallace, that I'm going to show a little later, was fairly confrontational. But the lettering, they use that yellow lettering, which that's why I use yellow lettering in my thumbnails, because it stands out a lot more than the white lettering of the antagonist to Representative Raul Labrador. You can let me know if you think that was biased reporting. And then I want to show one more about deja vu at the beginning, because he does a little bit of a report on the French election, which I understand congratulations are in order to France. There's not going to be a President Le Pen, and they've avoided their Donald Trump, from what I understand from the results. I'm not reporting on that. I just decided to concentrate on the healthcare issue this week. But you can see the very tail end of Jake Tapper's brief report on the French election, when he talks about deja vu, and then going into his very brief report also on the healthcare debate that I think, even though it's brief, is just as good as some of the other ones, probably better than the Fox News one, as I will discuss after we watch that minute and 20-second clip here.
I believe they call it deja vu. Here in the U.S., Republicans and Democrats are both looking forward to the next front in the battle over health care legislation, the U.S. Senate. As House Republicans celebrated the health care bill passed on Thursday, Democrats immediately got to work to try to target vulnerable members who voted for it. Ads around the country are set to air tomorrow, mostly in congressional districts won by Hillary Clinton, with a Republican representative in the House, including this 6-figure TV and digital campaign from the liberal group Save My Care. Here's a slice of the ad targeted against Arizona Congresswoman Martha McSally.
Congresswoman McSally just voted for a disastrous health care repeal bill opposed by the American Medical Association, AARP, and the American Cancer Society. McSally voted to raise your costs and cut coverage for millions, to let insurance companies deny affordable coverage for cancer treatment and maternity care, and charge 5 times more for people over 50.
The legislation does face an uncertain future in the Senate, where Republicans' 2-vote margin makes any controversial provision in the legislation a potential bill killer. The president just tweeted about this morning, writing, quote, "Republican senators will not let the American people down. Obamacare premiums and deductibles are way up. It was a lie, and it is dead," unquote. Let's talk more about this with Dr. Tom Price.
And I'm going to show a clip of Dr. Tom Price, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, not from Jake Tapper, but from NBC's Meet the Press, in just a minute is the next clip. But I like that report there from Jake Tapper, both because I like the clip they used from that ad. I thought it was a lot more emotive and a lot more representative of what Democrats can use to target vulnerable Republicans for voting for this bill than that other clip with the crushing of the ambulance. That I thought was a little bit stupid, but that's my opinion. You can let me know what you think about those opposing Republican ads that from the two different news stories, which one you think is more effective. And I thought that the Jake Tapper, the way it was shorter and didn't really take much away from the analysis. And like I said, that was the that was the last of the 4 different news stories I want to show on the healthcare debate. So now I want to go into the interview clips, and they're on a few different topics. The first one being this topic of all the white men who were in that photo op or who were involved in the passage of healthcare. And of course, and I have 3 clips on that, and of course 2 of them come from the female anchor this week, Andrea Mitchell, hosting NBC's Meet the Press. I saw someone down in the live comments say they hate, they didn't even call her Andrea Mitchell, they called her Andrea Greenspan. Sorry, I didn't have a time to screen capture that because she's married to Alan Greenspan. I mean, I certainly don't always agree with her, and she definitely has some very establishment opinions, but I also have seen her do a good job at journalism on many occasions, so you have to give her credit for that. And here's Andrea Mitchell asking the Secretary of Health and Human Services about why there were all those white men in the picture, and you can see his somewhat defensive answer that I think is somewhat disingenuous for reasons I will discuss with you after we watch that clip together over here.
Women. I mean, when we looked at the Rose Garden and the celebration of this on Thursday, they were all, mostly all men, and white men at that. There was no diversity there. Women's health issues arguably are going to be disproportionately affected. Take a look at this. Obamacare includes maternity and newborn care, preventative care, mammograms, cervical cancer screenings, birth control. All of this under the essential package, no longer required under this House bill.
Andrea, come on, look at that picture. Congresswoman Dianne Black, the chair of the Budget Committee, I was standing next to her. Seema Verma, the administrator of CMS, I was standing right next to her.
Out of a group of dozens and dozens of people, you can cite two or three women?
These are prominent individuals who are leading in this area of health care. But the goal, as I mentioned, is to make certain that every single American, men, women, rich, poor, old, young, have the kind of coverage that they want for themselves and for their families, not that government forces them to buy. That's the change.
Well, let's talk about...
And I thought that answer was disingenuous, and the idea that, well, there are very few women, but they're leaders. Well, then why is it that you only even can see the few women involved when in the really wide shots, in the tight shots of the people who are up front, who are presumably the leaders? I don't know. Maybe they're leading from behind. That must be it. The women are leading from behind in the Republican Party, apparently. You can let me know what you think about Tom Price's answer and the validity of Andrea Mitchell's question, which I thought was a good question. And you can see she even used it in her interview with the senator or one of the 2 senators from my state, Dianne Feinstein. I'm actually not a big fan of Dianne Feinstein because she is much too conservative a Democrat for, I mean, she didn't start out that way, but at this point in her career, on national security issues, surveillance, military, use of military force, there are a lot of issues where I'm not, criminal justice issues. I'm not a big fan of Dianne Feinstein's, and but I'm perfectly happy with her answer to the question that Andrea Mitchell asked her, sort of the counterpart to the question and answer you just watched with Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price. And here's the exchange with Senator Feinstein in this clip.
about this. Do you think that something can come out of the Senate? Can enough Democrats go over, or enough moderate Republicans be persuaded that they should vote for something, or what has to come out of the bill
well,
for you to even consider supporting it?
First, I don't know what the leader, McConnell, has in mind. I don't know what the 13 white men, when you have 5 Republican women who are excluded from that these 13 men are supposed to sit down.
You're speaking of the working group that has been put together, and it's all male.
And it's all male. And women's health is a big part of this, and women are a majority of the population, and their health interests deserve to be contemplated in any reform. My position is, and I believe this is the Democratic position, don't repeal Obamacare. Take those sections, like the individual market, which has some problems in it, and deal with it and fix those sections. And it can be done. I'm really very worried that in the rush to judgment, we create a major health care problem for people, and we lose a lot of jobs in so doing, and we create a whole atmosphere of unpredictability.
I wanted to ask you about the...
So you can see Dianne Feinstein brought up the not the celebration in the Rose Garden, but the group of 13 senators who are the steering committee, or I can't remember the name of their committee, but they're the senators in charge for the Republicans and in charge of coming up with the Senate version of a health care bill that then will go to conference with the House version and come up with something that they can send to President Trump to sign and solve this whole problem and somehow get more coverage to more people at a lower cost, which seems pretty unlikely, but you can let me know what you think down in the comment section about Dianne Feinstein's answer about whether women as the majority of the country and a group that have specific health care needs, whether there should be some representation for women on that group of 13 senators. And that was also a question for a female Republican senator, Susan Collins. She was over on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, where George Stephanopoulos specifically asked her about that group of 13 white men and even showed a picture of the group. And Susan Collins gives one answer as to why she's not in the group, but then her later answer, I think, may explain why she was not chosen for the group. And I will explain what I mean after you listen to her explanation talking to George Stephanopoulos this morning over here.
Working group that's been put together in the Senate to deal with health care. I'm going to put the picture up right there. There you see it right there, 13 men. Not a single woman. Cecile Richards from Planned Parenthood tweeted about that. When women aren't at the table, we're on the menu. Senator Patty Murray, Democratic senator, of course. It matters to have women at the table, and it matters when they aren't. Why aren't you on that working group?
Well, the leaders obviously chose the people they want, but I'm working hard with Senator Cassidy, with our co-sponsors, Senator Mike Rounds, Shelley Moore Capito, Johnny Isakson. We're reaching out to moderate Democrats. I would like to see us put together a bipartisan group to solve this problem of Democrats who acknowledge that there are problems with the current law, that it is not working well in several states, and Republicans who also want to make sure that we're not reducing coverage and we're giving flexibility. There's an issue that no one's talking about in Washington that's so critical, and that is if we're going to reduce the cost of health insurance, we have to take steps to reduce the cost of health care. And no one's talking about that. Senator Cassidy and I have in our bill a transparency section so that you would actually know what you're paying. And I think that would help consumers make better choices.
Final question. Can you support a...
So you saw Senator Susan Collins there give her answer as to why she's not part of that group of 13 white men, even though she's a Republican. And her answer was, well, the leaders chose who they want. But then if you continue listening to her answer, I think she may have explained why they didn't want her, which is that she just appears too by which I mean bipartisan, that she talked too much about bipartisanship, and at least for this next bill, they don't need to be bipartisan. All they have to do is not lose more than 2 Republican votes, and I don't know, maybe she's one of those Republicans they're expecting to lose. Excuse me. But I don't know, that was a little bit of a joke, but not really. And that's the last of the 3 clips I wanted to show on the issue of this gender bias in the Republican Party, which, given the history of the Republican president, doesn't seem like the war on women meme or the issue of Republicans not being a women-friendly party. I don't think that issue is going away very soon. The next clip I want to show, or actually the next 2 clips I want to show, are from CBS's Face the Nation, and that reminds me I have to warn my loyal viewers who will find this somewhere in the middle of the video here that it's quite possible I will not be able to live stream sometime in the near future. I got a copyright claim from CBS on my Donald Trump clip from Face the Nation last week, and when I disputed it, they escalated. They denied my dispute, and I had to appeal their denial. And this happened 13 months ago, a little over a year ago, where I actually got a strike from CBS because they disagreed with my interpretation of fair use, and it's possible that will happen again. If they could send me the DMCA at any time, and I'm pretty sure that means I lose the ability to stream for 90 days, but then if I counter notice and it goes away, it's really 10 to 14 business days, which could be 2 or 3, probably 3 weeks worth of Liberal Viewer Sunday live clip roundups may be taken down by a bogus CBS copyright claim on my media criticism and political analysis of their interview, or 3 clips of their interview with Donald Trump last week. That having been said, I'm still going to take clips from CBS's Face the Nation when I think they're newsworthy and I think I have commentary worth making on them, and that is true of this next clip, where this is John Dickerson talking to Joe Manchin about I showed Dianne Feinstein earlier, who I called too conservative a Democrat. Well, Joe Manchin here is actually, I think at one point he calls himself the most centrist Democrat in the Senate, and he's the Democrat from West Virginia, or one of the 2 senators from West Virginia, and he is, I think, the most conservative Democrat in the Senate, and you can kind of tell in this clip, which is why I picked it, he starts off sounding like a Democrat. He gets a softball question. I always, if you look at my clip notes, I usually have it like the news anchor versus the guest in the question, but occasionally I put the news anchor tease the guest. That's the softball question where they really tee it up for the guest, and this is just so what'd you think of the House bill that just passed? That's a pretty easy question, and he starts off sounding like a Democrat, saying I can't believe it, and it has all these problems for the hardworking people of West Virginia. But then by the end of this clip, he actually sounds kind of like a Republican, where he's really condescending, we gave all these people health care and we forgot to tell them how to use it, and we have to tell people how to eat healthy and live right, and I don't know. You tell me if he sounds like half Democrat, half Republican in this CBS Face the Nation clip from this morning over here.
What do you make of the health care bill that passed out of the House?
I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't from this standpoint. We are a state, as I mentioned before, that's done a lot of heavy work for this country, heavy lifting, for over 100 years. We have a lot of pre-existing conditions. I have a lot of people that are elderly. Every dynamic and every topography of my state gets absolutely slammed with this piece of legislation. So I said, get rid of the word repeal and start talking about repairing. If they can get rid of the word repeal, John, we can sit down. Democrats and Republicans could work through this. We know that this bill needs to be fixed. The Affordable Care Act, there's not a Democrat doesn't realize we need to work on the private market. But you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and then you're throwing insult to injury by giving $575 billion tax cut to the wealthiest Americans while you're cutting $880 billion of service to the poorest Americans. If you want more synergies there, you know, I said this before, John, we have given 20 million people health care they never had, never bought, don't know the value. We never gave them one word of instructions how to use it more effectively, how to use it more efficiently, how to keep themselves healthier, nutritional lifestyles, changing their whole lifestyles, making them more accountable and responsible. There's tremendous savings. We're not trying anything. We're just throwing the baby out with the bathwater in order to give a tax break. I just want to work and sit down and try to get something done, but no one's asked us. I understand that we have 13 Republican senators working on revamping the bill. Our congressional delegation says, don't worry, the Senate will fix it. And no one's asked any Democrat. And I'm the most centrist Democrat willing to work and fix things if people really want to do it. But I can't do it with a threat of shut down, repeal, throw it out.
I want to move on quickly.
You can tell me what you think about that little speech there from Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia. If it follows the format that I explained before, I show the clip where he starts off sounding like a Democrat, you know, finding all these problems with the bill passed by the House. But by the end there, he's like, seems to be saying that all these people are like too stupid to understand how to use health care and how to eat right. You know, there are several Republicans who got caught or who, I don't know, caught or just exposed this week saying things like, well, you know, we want people not to, who like live right and, you know, don't get sick. Like it's people, I mean, there are some number of diseases, I guess, that are, you know, if you smoke or you're overweight or there are various life habits, I guess it can make it more likely for you to get sick. But to put like moral judgment on people needing health care, that I think is kind of silly. Certainly not moral, but not according to my morality. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section. And I also promised to show you this next clip earlier when I showed the news clip of George Stephanopoulos reporting on the health care bill passage, where he showed the New York Post coverage that both sides were acting like children. Well, the actual analysis of the bill passage here, in this next clip, you'll see the the Secretary of the Office of Management and Budget, Mick Mulvaney, use a reference to Schoolhouse Rock, How a Bill Becomes a Law, as his defense to the contradiction between what Donald Trump said about this bill being a great bill, and then all the times you hear all these other officials, like you'll hear from Mick Mulvaney, say they're going to make it a lot better because, you know, it's going to get totally changed in the Senate. It's going to get a lot better. And I think John Dickerson does a good job of showing that contradiction, although he kind of goes along with the Schoolhouse Rock reference, which, I don't know, maybe you saw the introductory clip, the cold open from Saturday Night Live, where they had Donald Trump going, what? When they were telling him it has to pass the Senate. And I don't know, is it possible that he hasn't read the Constitution of the United States? The President of the United States should probably read that and know how a bill becomes a law, not from Schoolhouse Rock. Same thing with Mick Mulvaney, but John Dickerson lets him get away with it, but still makes his point over in this clip.
On what the president will or won't sign until we know what's in front of him.
So the president kept saying this is a great bill and it's a good bill, but it's incomplete is what you're saying.
No, I'm saying that the Senate is part of the government. This is a bill that passed out of the House. You and I are about the same age. We remember Schoolhouse Rock when we were kids, and I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And we're going to go through that process. Right. Is it ugly? Maybe. Is it slow? Yes, but it's the right way to do it, and it's how we're going to handle this bill.
The president said in the Rose Garden, quote, "We will have great health care for everyone in our nation. When we're done with the Schoolhouse Rock process, will everyone in the nation be covered as the president promised in the Rose Garden?"
I think everybody will have coverage that's better than what they had under Obamacare.
But will he says everybody in the nation. So even Obamacare didn't cover everyone.
Well, again, what we talked about before is the access to it. Remember what Obamacare gave you? Obamacare gave you insurance, but not health care. A lot of folks who were technically insured either couldn't afford the premiums or couldn't afford the copay. And that's what we've been driving at, giving people the care that they want, the quality that they need, the affordability that they deserve. That's what we're talking about, actual medical care, not just insurance.
So, but the president, when he said...
And that's the talking point you heard a lot on the Sunday shows this morning from Republicans, this idea of we're getting people care, not coverage, but there are a lot of holes in that. I don't know if John Dickerson did the best job of pointing out the holes. I think he more pointed out the contradiction between what Mick Mulvaney was saying about how they're going to improve this bill, and it's not as bad as what the CBO scoring and the amendments at the end didn't really change that so much. So they're trying to say it's not as bad as what passed the House, while Donald Trump is also celebrating and saying what a great thing they've done. So at least that contradiction was shown on CBS's Face the Nation. But the next clips I want to show delve more into the details of how it's not really going to get people better coverage, which, at least in that clip, John Dickerson didn't really go into. But this is actually multiple follow-up confrontational questioning from Fox News Sunday's anchor Chris Wallace. This is with the Secretary of, the White House Chief of Staff, Reince Priebus, where you'll see Chris Wallace actually use clips of Donald Trump's promises to cover everybody and talk specifically about the problems with pre-existing conditions. And I think this is pretty good, not quite as good as the next clip of Andrea Mitchell talking to Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price about the same issue. But I think in both clips you can see holes in the Republican position. I'll discuss the holes in this first Republican's position, talking to Chris Wallace, the anchor of the Republican News Network, Fox News Network, Republican News Network, well, pretty much the same thing over here.
That you've made during the campaign. Here's the promise that the president made to voters about Obamacare. Here it is.
I am going to take care of everybody. I don't care if it costs me votes or not. Everybody's going to be taken care of much better than they're taken care of now.
But here are some of the features of the House bill. Under Obamacare, older people, let's say 55 to 64, could be charged 3 times as much as younger people. In the House bill, it's 5 times as much or even more. Under Obamacare, people with pre-existing conditions could not be charged more. In the House plan, if states opt out, folks with pre-existing conditions can be charged more. Given all of that, can you really stand by the president's pledge that everybody will be taken care of?
Absolutely, Chris. And if you break this down, and I'll be very quick, in this bill on pre-existing conditions, 176 million people across this country get employer-based insurance. This does not affect pre-existing conditions for those people. Number 2, it doesn't affect pre-existing conditions for Medicare recipients. It doesn't affect pre-existing conditions for Medicaid recipients. So now you're down to about 9.5 million people, and it doesn't affect anyone with continuous coverage. Even if a governor, which I'm not sure that's ever going to happen, takes the waiver option, it wouldn't affect anyone with continuous coverage. Now let's just assume that there are some people that might not have continuous coverage. They might not be on Medicare. They might not be on Medicaid. They might not have employer insurance.
There are millions of people who fall into that.
And the governor takes a waiver. We've put billions, not millions, billions upon billions
over 5 years
into high-risk pools to buy down any premium that they would have to pay for. And that's just in the House bill. What this tells you is that when President Trump brought Billy Long, Fred Upton, Greg Walden, and Dr. Burgess into his office last week and said, fellas, let's work it out. Let's make sure that this pre-existing condition is taken care of. President Trump made it happen, which should show every American how committed he is to making sure that if you have a pre-existing condition, this president is not going to let you down.
Okay, you're talking about that narrowly. There are arguments against it. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. But here's the broader point. The CBO released an analysis of the last bill, and let's put the stats up on that. By next year, the CBO said 14 million people covered under Obamacare will lose their insurance. By 2026, 24 million people will. That's not taking care of everybody as the president promised.
Well, first of all, we don't buy that CBO score. I mean, everyone instantly isn't going to come off of insurance as that CBO score would indicate. We're also going to have more options for people. They're going to have different levels of options for people. The pre-existing conditions are going to be
rolling
brought
back
down.
Medicaid.
The high-risk pools are
older
going to be
people are going to end up paying 5 times as much or even more.
And by the way, that's the old bill. That's before. That
part of it
the
stays.
Amendments. But that's before the amendments were put in, and it's also before the Senate takes the bill and makes it even better, Chris. The point of all of this, and instead of getting into weeds, is that go back to the beginning. And if we go back to the beginning, we have 2 options. Continue down the road we were on with a failing, collapsing system that most people don't think is going to work if you poll it, or start the process with a better system with more choices, more options, lower premiums, keep your doctor, all the things that President Trump promised. We started that process. We got it through the House. And now it's off to the Senate. We will get this done. We will repeal and replace Obamacare and give Americans a better product. That's what the president promised.
Let's talk about another aspect of this.
I don't know. It seemed like there were a lot more talking points than facts there from Reince Priebus. I did like it, mostly the way Chris Wallace followed up there, even though I called it the Republican News Network, Fox News. Chris Wallace, even though he does have his moments of bias, also has his moments of journalism. He's, I guess he's kind of bi in that way, not bipartisan, but he's bilingual. I don't know, and in a way it is kind of bipartisan. Sometimes he's not a nonpartisan journalist, and sometimes he's a partisan journalist. And it seems to be, I don't know. He's a little he defies easy analysis, I guess, is the easiest way to avoid giving any more analysis on that topic. And the other thing I wanted to say about the arguments there from Reince Priebus is he kept saying, pre-existing conditions don't apply to people who have insurance this way, insurance this way, insurance this way, and that there are this many million people in this group and this many million people in this group, as if it's completely static and that people don't fall in and out of groups and sometimes have gaps. And that's the thing that they talked about, getting rid of this mandate as a way that the government punishes people to get them to have insurance. But if you can also charge people a huge amount, insurance companies can charge them a huge amount extra for not having continuous coverage. That's kind of like a mandate to have insurance, just the money goes to the insurance company, not to the government. But that's one of the holes I wanted to point out that Chris Wallace didn't cover. And the other thing I wanted to do with that last clip is I wanted to compare it to this next clip from Andrea Mitchell on NBC's Meet the Press, which is just about the same length, and it's on the same topic, the lack of coverage for pre-existing conditions. The person answering is the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Tom Price, not the Chief of Staff, Reince Priebus. That's why I kind of got them confused. But you see, the topic is very much the same. You can tell me whether you think Andrea Mitchell is more or less confrontational than Chris Wallace, whether they get more to the bottom of the pre-existing condition issue. I think you're going to hear a lot of the same talking points. That's how you know they're talking points, when you hear multiple officials from the Trump administration all say the exact same stuff. That's because they have a sheet of talking points that they all memorized, and that's what you're going to hear, a lot of the same things from Tom Price you heard from Reince Priebus, just with different questioning, different person, same words, same bullshit, I guess, in this clip.
The health care bill as it was passed by the House. The president promised that he would take care of people with pre-existing conditions. Critics say that this bill, as passed by the House, does not.
No, I think it's absolutely true that the president is fulfilling his promise to the American people, and that is to make certain that every single American has access to the kind of coverage that they want for themselves and for their family, not that the government forces them to buy, and make certain that we ensure that individuals with pre-existing illnesses and injuries and conditions are covered, but covered in a way that they want. Again, not that Washington forces them.
But you're talking about access. Access at what price? Are you pricing people out of the market? 84% of people 55 years and older, according to your department's own studies, have pre-existing conditions. Are they going to be able to afford the price that is set? Because states can opt out, and there will no longer be any requirement that this be affordable.
No, absolutely. We think it's going to be more affordable, as a matter of fact, Andrea. But it's important to look at the people that we're talking about. If you have Medicare, if you have Medicaid, if you have insurance through the VA or TRICARE or through your employer, none of this affects you in the pre-existing illness or condition discussion that we're having. If you do have a pre-existing condition and you're in the exchange market right now, remember that many, many people have increasing premiums, increasing deductibles. They're in an area in this country where there is either one insurer offering coverage or in some places none. Those are folks that have pre-existing illnesses and injuries and can't get any care at all. They may have an insurance card, but they can't get care.
But Mr. Secretary,
this is a system that's not working for patients, and that's what we're trying to fix.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but let me just stipulate. There are areas, we know that in Iowa, now in Virginia, that there are insurance market issues. That could be fixed, but let's stipulate that that still needs to be fixed. But what about this issue of pre-existing conditions? You have 22 major healthcare groups. We're going to scroll the names. Let our viewers see. 22 groups, including the AMA, you're talking about the doctors, the American Lung Association, the American Osteopathic Association, the Academy of Pediatrics, the Children's Hospital Association, 22 groups, the AARP, nurses, even insurers, all of them are against the way the House passed this bill. Are they wrong?
Well, what I believe they're not recognizing is that this is a different and we believe a better way to cover individuals with pre-existing illnesses and injuries, because it allows for every single person to get the access to the kind of coverage that they want. Look, nobody wants folks who have a pre-existing illness or injury not to be covered. We want to make certain that we can do it at a lower price and broader choices for patients so that, again, they're able to see the doctor that they want to see, they're able to go to the hospital that they want to go to the clinic that they want to go to, not that Washington forces them to participate in. So this is yes, it's a different way, but it's a way that we believe to be better and more comprehensive and ability to have those patients have the kind of coverage and care that they want. And just because we stipulate that there are places where there's only one insurer or no insurers, that's a major problem, and those are the kinds of things we're trying to fix.
But you say that people are not going to lose what they are getting now. Well, let's take a look at what you said.
So, I mean, I thought the scrolling of all the healthcare groups that opposed the bill and the pre-existing condition cut and sort of boring in on that, that was a different approach than you saw from Chris Wallace over on Fox News Sunday, but I thought it was equally effective. It's just sort of another angle, and like I said, you heard a lot of the same talking points, and Tom Price uses a lot of the same language over and over again, you know, not government control, we're going to give choices back to the people, we're just not going to give them the money to exercise any of those choices, I guess. And that actually is the topic of the next clip. Well, really, the next two clips have to do with this $880 billion, with the B, billion cut in Medicaid funding. You know, there was Medicaid expansion where it wasn't just for people at the poverty level. They went up, I think it was 150%, it was at 200%. Anyway, it went well above the poverty level, which isn't that high. I mean, we're talking about people who make, sadly, minimum wage, that kind of thing. And so there are people who can't really afford health care, and there was expansion that was going to be mandated on the states, and then there was a Supreme Court decision that said the states got to decide whether they could opt in or opt out, and basically it was a lot of the old states from the old Confederacy, a lot of the southern states opted out, as someone pointed out on one of the panelists on HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher, in a clip I'm not going to take. But the most bogus argument I heard, and I heard it multiple times, and I'm going to show you two clips of two different people. First, Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price, and then Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, both trying to claim that it's going to be better resources, better health care for the people on Medicaid with this $880 billion cut. And I think that Jake Tapper on CBS, on CNN State of the Union, as well as George Stephanopoulos over on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos with Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, they both had effective ways of making this questioning really bite. And Jake Tapper's method had to do with, I guess, the fact that his father's a pediatrician and he understands why it is that fewer and fewer doctors are taking Medicare. You'll see in his follow-up question, he says, the reason fewer doctors take Medicare is, not Medicare, I'm sorry, Medicaid. And we have Medicaid here in California. It's called Medi-Cal, and it's for poor people, disabled people, and some elderly people. The Medicare is for people over the age of 65. That's anyway, but I think the reason that doctors don't take Medicaid is because the reimbursement level is really low. It's not as high as private insurance or Medicare for senior citizens, and so they can't afford to take it. And so the question is, how are more doctors going to take Medicaid when it has $880 billion less, which I don't think Tom Price does a good job of answering, as you will watch with me. This Jake Tapper takes a long time to try to get an answer on the question, how does $880 billion cut make things better? He never really gets the answer. That's why this goes on for about 5 minutes and 24 seconds over here.
So during the campaign, President Trump presented himself as a different kind of Republican. He said he would protect Medicaid. That's the health care program for the poor and also for people with disabilities. He said he would do that without making any cuts to Medicaid. Take a listen.
I'm not going to cut Social Security like every other Republican, and I'm not going to cut Medicare or Medicaid. Save Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security without cuts. Have to do it.
Save Medicaid without cuts. But according to the Congressional Budget Office, the health care bill that just passed the House would cut $880 billion over 10 years from Medicaid. Now, I know that the Trump administration is excited that Medicaid will go back to the states where they have more control and can experiment and be more efficient. But without question, $880 billion fewer dollars is a cut. How is this not a broken promise?
Well, look at the Medicaid program that we have right now, Jake, and that's a program where 1/3 of the physicians that ought to be seeing Medicaid patients aren't. And that's because there's a fundamental flaw within the program itself. So what we're trying to do is to, and we ask you and the American people, to imagine a Medicaid system that actually works better for patients. Medicaid is a system that deals with the disabled, the elderly, healthy moms, and kids. And yet the federal government up to this point has said to the states, you've got to treat every single one of those individuals exactly the same. That doesn't make any sense to anybody. So what we're fashioning is a system that would allow the states to tailor their Medicaid program to those specific individuals, thereby saving money, yes, but also making it so that they have a higher level of care, higher quality of care than they currently do. That sounds like it makes a lot of sense.
Well, I know a little bit about this because my dad is a pediatrician in South Philadelphia, and he takes Medicaid dollars. And one of the reasons why so many of his colleagues do not is because the Medicaid reimbursement level for doctors is so little, as opposed to, for instance, the reimbursement level for Medicare, which is for seniors. Why will cutting $880 billion over 10 years from the program encourage doctors to keep taking it? It sounds to me that it will actually discourage doctors. Less money, lower reimbursement rates.
Well, remember what the $880 billion is off of. It's off what's called a baseline, which is what the federal government, what the Congressional Budget Office says we would spend if we just continued current law. The fact of the matter is that Medicaid spending under the proposal and under the budget goes up every single year, and it goes up by a factor that's great, that is equal to the cost of medical care. That means that the states will have greater flexibility to provide coverage and care for their Medicaid population than they do right now, and that's incredibly important because, as your dad sees, I'm absolutely certain, is that oftentimes the Medicaid reimbursement doesn't cover the cost of the provision of the care for those kids that he's taking care of. Now, imagine a system that allowed greater flexibility so that more resources could be put to the seniors and the disabled, and appropriate resources could be put to the healthy moms and kids in a Medicaid system. That's a system that, again, works better for patients than it does for government or insurance companies.
But the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, looked at the plan that passed the House, although there were some changes to it, and said 14 million people who are on Medicaid will no longer be able to be on Medicaid. Governors from around the country, including these 7 Republicans I'm about to put on the screen, they're on the record saying they're concerned about these cuts to Medicaid in this health care bill. If you believe in sending this back to the states, Shouldn't you and President Trump be listening to these Republican governors who are on the front lines?
Oh, in fact, we have listened, and we've listened very intently and had wonderful meetings with Republican governors. Remember that there are no cuts to the Medicaid program. There are increases in spending. But what we're doing is apportioning it in a way that allows the states greater flexibility to cover their Medicaid and care for their Medicaid population. This is incredibly important. And I know that you know, the media loves to talk about the cuts that the CBO talks about. But again, what the Congressional Budget Office measures is spending as if nothing changes at all, as if the program is doing just fine. Thank you very much. The fact of the matter is that the program isn't doing just fine. And so what the president's commitment is, what our commitment is at Health and Human Services, is to make certain that those individuals in the Medicaid population get not just the coverage that they need, but the care that they need. And that's what's important.
Are you actually saying that $880 billion in cuts, according to the CBO, however you want to talk about that not being a cut, that's actually not going to result in millions of Americans not getting Medicaid?
Absolutely not. And we believe strongly that the Medicaid population that will be cared for in a better way under our program, because it'll be more responsive to them. These decisions will be made closer to them. Right now, you've got Washington, D.C. dictating to the states and dictating to patients exactly what must occur. That's not how a healthy health system works. A healthy health system works by allowing those individuals closest to the patients themselves to be making those decisions. And from the president's perspective and our perspective, that means patients and families and doctors making medical decisions, not Washington, D.C.
Well, as you know,
I am not buying that what Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price was selling there, and I thought that Jake Tapper, you know, wow, he really stuck at it there. He had all sorts of ammunition. He had his Republican governors. He had his pediatrician father in Philadelphia explaining why it is that doctors don't take Medicaid and how cutting $880 billion from the program is not going to make it any easier for them to take Medicaid. And, you know, if I were doing, like, if I were conservative looking for liberal bias in the media, you know, that chyron, you know, the text that comes up in the lower third of the screen, CNN that used that chyron all the way to like the end of the Tom Price interview, that chyron that says CBO says $880 billion cuts in Medicaid. That chyron, it came up all the way at the end when they weren't even talking about the Medicaid cuts anymore. CNN was putting that chyron back up. That seemed a little gratuitous. Not that I minded it so much, but it was gratuitous chyron usage. I just wanted to point out, call CNN on that. And then I want to get to my final clip. This is one of the most powerful Republicans in Washington, D.C., the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, leader of the Republicans in the House of Representatives, the person probably other than Donald Trump I don't know. They said they were all saying Donald Trump showed leadership and got this bill through, and I am calling it Trumpcare, so he does get responsibility, but Paul Ryan is the one who got that bill through the House. He's the Speaker of the House, along with the other members of the leadership. And here is Paul Ryan answering pretty much the same question you saw Tom Price asked by Jake Tapper. This is 2 minutes shorter than the last clip. It's like 3 minutes, 22 seconds, I think. And George Stephanopoulos, I think, uses this amazing chart where he pairs the $880 billion in Medicaid cuts. He calls them like almost $1 trillion in cuts. That's fine. And he pairs it with the big tax cut for the rich, which I think goes to healthcare executives. I don't remember, but there's like a good tax cut for the rich in this bill as well. And I love this chart, and I will say what I think about what I don't love about Speaker of the House Paul Ryan's answer after you watch this final clip of the broadcast tonight here.
Going to be worse. I want to get to another point, though. This bill does cut taxes. by about $900 billion. It cuts Medicaid and other subsidies by about $1 trillion. I want to put up a chart right now that shows the distribution of those benefits and burdens right there. And it shows that just about everybody under $50,000 is going to be cut back. Small benefits for the middle class above that, but a huge, huge benefit for those making over $200,000 a year. Warren Buffett just yesterday said he's going to get a 17% tax cut. And your critics are saying this is just a huge transfer of wealth from the poor and the middle class to the wealthy. How do you respond?
Couple things. We're keeping our word, which is we're repealing and replacing the entirety of this law, which is we're repealing all the Obamacare taxes. The Obamacare taxes are job-killing taxes that hurt economic growth and, more importantly, make health insurance more expensive. These taxes, and most of them, are aimed at the healthcare system, which actually makes those premiums higher. It pushes medical device companies overseas. It makes it more expensive for you to buy your health care. That's point number one. Point number two.
Most of the benefits go to millionaires.
Medicaid. We're repealing all of the Obamacare taxes, but the Medicaid, what we're doing with Medicaid, we're giving the states the ability to customize Medicaid to meet the particular needs of their vulnerable populations. You got to remember, Medicaid is a program that is administered by the states but micromanaged by the federal government, and not very well. More and more doctors are refusing to even accept people with Medicaid, and so we want to give the states the ability to customize the Medicaid program to work for their particular states.
But you're saying they can do that with $880 billion less. You're saying they can do that with $880 billion less.
We're giving states the ability to run their own Medicaid program, and it is increasing per medical inflation. And by the way, we recognize that for certain people in Medicaid, the disabled, the aged, people in nursing homes, we're giving them an even bigger increase so that their funds are even more than everybody else. And so by giving states the right to run Medicaid and giving them a block grant, per capita block grant or a block grant, and then increasing that spending by medical inflation, I hardly think that's draconian.
So you don't think anyone's going to be hurt when you're taking $880 billion out of the system?
No, I don't, because I think the micromanagement of Medicaid by the federal government, the Medicaid system isn't working. Doctors aren't taking Medicaid. Hospitals can't survive with Medicaid alone. So by getting the states the ability to customize their Medicaid population, their program to work for them, whenever we've had a waiver given to a state so they can customize it works better. So we want to give every state the ability to make sure that they can customize this program to work for the unique needs of their vulnerable populations. Again, George, here's the fatal conceit of Obamacare. It says we're going to micromanage this with bureaucrats in Washington telling every state and every community how it must work. That is failing. Medicaid isn't working. Obamacare is collapsing. Insurance plans are pulling out. People are getting no choices, if any at all.
Yeah.
And we have to fix this. This is a rescue operation, and you have to acknowledge every state is a little different. And so what we're trying to achieve here, and what this bill does achieve, give states the ability to meet the needs of their populations, but put the resources in there so that everyone can have affordable health insurance coverage,
you talk about the
including people with pre-existing conditions.
You talk about
micromanaging this from Washington, we've already shown that this isn't working.
You're talking about the state flexibility. Senator Susan Collins is coming up next.
So, I don't know. I didn't think Speaker of the House Paul Ryan did any better job with those Republican talking points than Tom Price. I thought that George Stephanopoulos, he didn't do as good a job as Jake Tapper in confronting Paul Ryan with those talking points about how, the doctors don't take Medicaid, and he used that Republican talking point I heard all morning, and I think you heard in earlier clips about how Obamacare is failing. They kept attacking Obamacare to try to distract from how terrible their bill actually was, and I don't know. I did think that George Stephanopoulos did a good job of, he was like the human Chiron there with the $880 billion. They didn't have a Chiron at the bottom saying cut of $880 billion in Medicaid, but George Stephanopoulos what about the $880 billion? What about the $880 billion? He brought it up several times, so I think he did a good job on that. And I don't know, Paul Ryan, for some reason whenever I see him, maybe I'm of a certain age, the Schoolhouse Rock age, and whenever I see Paul Ryan, makes me think Eddie Munster for some reason. But you can let me know what you think down in the comment section. That's the end of the program tonight. I started real late tonight for various reasons, and it's been a very long, tough week, and not probably going to get any easier. So I appreciate all of you who have been watching the live show. I appreciate all of my patrons. I notice I have almost 100 patrons, and if it weren't for you guys, I don't think I could be surviving the lack of advertising income from YouTube. I finally had a chance to talk to someone from YouTube this last week, and they said it may be just a temporary thing, that they're working on fixing the system, although they were also not able to give me any deadline. And so far it was like the entire month of April, and how far it's been into May, whatever, where my 180,000 views in the month, like what was it, like 15,000 were monetized, or no, even less than that. But anyway, I have to go back and look at my monetized views, but they're basically running ads next to none of my videos, even though they say they're monetized. So thanks to my patrons for you used to be like a third of my income, now you're like 2/3 of my income for the last month. So I appreciate that support. People who support me by commenting, showing up for the live shows, give me a thumbs up, supportive comments, sharing the video, all of that helps. And I will be back next week with another edition of LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Hopefully not quite so late and not quite so tired. And until next week, oh, I see I just got a nice super chat donation. I also appreciate the super chat donations. I thought I was going to get through the show without one, so thank you. It's in foreign currency, so I don't even know how much it was, but I will be seeing all of you next week, and until next week, I'll see all of you around the internet.